Maine House has voted in favor of a bill to ensure 16 and 17-year-olds can receive gender-affirming hormone therapy without a parental consent in some situations. The vote was 73-60.
The bill allows teens to undergo treatment without parental consent if they are diagnosed with gender dysphoria or experiencing harm and have received counseling. Representative Mark Malin of Biddeford says this bill will help teenagers who are not safe at home and without support in their lives to be their true self. Opponents argue parents should have rights when it comes to their children. Representative Lucas Lanigan of Sanford says people need a full psychological evaluation to get some medical procedures, but that requirement was not included in this bill.
I have a little problem with a 16-year-old being able to make this dramatic of a change to their body. However, they can't buy a movie ticket to a rated R movie without their parents' permission.
It breaks my heart when I hear examples of a child not being safe at home. This is why a measure like this is needed. In the absence of parental support, it will help keep these young people with their health and keep them alive. And keeping them alive also keeps alive the hope that whatever fissure existed at home can be repaired.
The bill is now headed to the Senate for a vote, and both chambers have already voted to enshrine in law a requirement for the state's Medicaid program to cover gender-affirming